Shut-da-da-da-da-da. Either sit tall or stand the fuck down. All the way from 216 to Chi-Town. Because y'all must have forgot, we double trouble bubbling hot. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Happy Saturday morning. It's almost Dr. King's Day. Can't fucking wait. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be out there in the streets celebrating. What do we got right here? So, Spathy Wah says, I heard in editing. And indeed, we are going to edit. I was just so fucking happy about how that chapter went yesterday. I was describing it to my friends. I went out the night. And it was like a rare moment of genuine adult happiness that we had fixed that chapter after working on it for a whole fucking week. So, shout outs to getting something done. And we just have 40 chapters to go. But they're all pretty brutal. So in this chapter, chapter 59, my note is that this is a 4,000 word chapter. 4,000 words is about 20 pages. And I want it to be good enough to stand alone as a short story. And that's a high bar to set. It also means that we would do potentially some things in it, such as redescribing the characters and really focusing like a little bit on the setting and so forth. I'm not sure why I thought this was a good idea. So I think what we're going to do is just edit this like a regular chapter. Then afterward, we're going to think about why I made that note and if something might be appropriate, like changing the perspective, changing the style, changing the tense. Why I thought that short story comment, but it might have just been like a one-off. You know, you never know what's up. So, yeah, I had an interesting time last night. I went out and hung out with my girlfriend for a bit, and then we went roller skating. And there's like a sort of roller disco. It's a tiny little disco floor, about the size of like a basketball rink. It's about the size of a basketball court. But there's still a lot of people that were there. And like, there's some really decent skaters out there. Most people hadn't skated in like years. And just kind of like clinging to the walls and bumbling on. But you can see them pick it up over the course of the night. And I've never been like a big quad skater myself there, but I skateboarded for so long that I have a lot of the muscles to like stay upright. And I was really having a good time. It wasn't a great DJ. I will say that the DJ was picking tracks that were the wrong BPM for jam skating. But what are you going to do, you know? Like, not a lot of people have a giant catalog of songs that are, and it was supposed to be like a 90s fucking jam skating night. And the 90s didn't have a lot of stuff coming through at about 75 to 85 BPM, which is about where you want to be at for skating. And just, yeah, like track after track, where I'm just like, this is too fast for people to keep pace with it. If you listen to some of the old music that people used to jam skate to, it's all like stuff that's coming along, at like this slow, almost R&B pace, because people have to be able to move their legs in time with the music for it to really be like a fun jam skating thing. But I don't know. Like it's not like there are a lot of DJs out there that have played the skate jams before, and I'm sure the DJ did a better job than I would have. Would have fucking train wrecked all over that thing. But yeah, like it was. Other than that, though, I had a really good time. The neat thing about New York is you get like a crazy mix of fucking people out there. I remember like one girl was getting really into the music and like swooping around and shit, and she's wearing like a headscarf and like this all black garment and everything. And it was not a costume. This is just like their like this everyday Muslim girl out there throwing down in her headscarf, and I thought it was pretty dope. So definitely enjoyed that. And then I went to a cocktail bar with some of my like oldest friends in the city, and we just had a fucking blast. I got some cocktail called like a Jurassic Attack that had all kinds of coconut and shit in there. Niggas was eating shrimp cocktails and everything. It was fucking, oh, what a time. But now we're here, and I have to deal with the fact. Also, watched the McGregor fight last night. God damn. I don't want to spoil it for you, but one of those fighters got put down awfully fast, and it was not too surprising. And the fight that led up to it, too, was just like a real boring fight. I only got to catch the two last fights of the card. The Holly Holm fight, I really felt that the judges should have just called it a draw, because neither of those fighters did anything. They were just grinding on each other all fight, and Holm was dictating the pace, so it's not surprising that she got it, but it's not how I want to see fights go. Just neither of them swinging, no real meaningful takedowns. Oh, wow. So, fun fact, in The Terminator, the chief in the police station tells Sarah O'Connor there are 39 cops in this building to calm her down. Later, when the Terminator comes, excluding the cop he smashes with his car, there are 29 rounds of gunfire and direct kills before he stops shooting. Nice. Nice. Oh, I fucking love The Terminator. Yeah, like when we were watching it the other day, we watched the original Terminator to kind of get a feel for it before we went and saw like Terminator 7. And we were surprised that there was a shout out to Harlan Ellison at the end of it. And like he had some short story called The TikTok Man that old James Cameron borrowed from pretty liberally to throw together the Terminator. So, I'm like fucking with a lot of tropes here. The fight was like sex, brief, brutal. Someone nearly dies. Only one person is happy with the outcome. I think Donald Cerrone is pretty happy with how that went down. That was a serious payday for him. He'll never make that kind of money again in his life. A lot of people are saying he should retire because he's just like a punchy at this point. Maybe, yeah. Like he's getting on in years. I didn't expect to see Connor in like, I don't know, like Cerrone's so scrappy. I know they were kind of just throwing him a bum, but Cerrone's the real deal. Like a lot of people are like, oh, he got knocked the fuck out and everything. He's just surprised by some of that shit. Like it's very rare for shoulder strikes to be effective in that way. Super duper rare. I was saying to fucking Kim in the hip hop Discord that you're gonna see like just a wave of fighters separating their shoulders trying to do that shit because it's hard to do. Did that in the opposite order. Watched the latest new Terminator. Decided to watch, needed to watch the original after it to get some context in what it used to be. Yeah, like honestly, the canon for the series is basically Terminator 1, solid movie, introduces the franchise, has like a strong female lead character, which is outside of the scope for action movies at the time, establishes Arnold as like in what really is going to be like his signature role for all time. Just really good movie. Terminator 2. Fantastic special effects, fucking mind blowing. Has like an interesting like sequence. It's like one of the better time travel movies that you can get a hold of. And then Terminator 7 is where like the continuity picks up again, where it's like the goofy summer movie fucking conclusion to the trilogy. Where like it's a lot of the things that are pretty obvious. In terms of like 1 and 2, 3, you would rate them as something like um, Terminator 1 is somewhere around like 92 to 93 in terms of like objective movie scale. And then Terminator 2 is a straight 100. Nothing wrong with that movie. Every part of it is exactly what it should be. It's, in my mind, potentially the greatest action movie of all time. And then Terminator 7 coming in at like a passable 74 to 76 right there. But if you take like the Terminator 3 through 6, all those are in like the 20s to 40s range, really sullying the franchise. Oh, we got Movie Fan. Can you hear my voice? Movie Fan. You're not allowed to eat those tacos. Oh, yeah. What's up with my voice here? We got Movie Fan 22113. Shit, I'm trying to think of where that area code is. Sounds like fucking Connecticut or something. You're getting doxxed, son. We've traced your location. It's a postal code in Germany. Are you fucking serious? Are you from Hamburg? My numbers have meaning. Okay. Well, shout out to Hamburg if that's it. As a joke in a review, somebody suggested an extra film after T2 where it's Sarah and John Connor trying to get back to normalcy, coming to terms with saving the world. Oh, he's Irish. Yeah, I was just in Dublin last summer for a science fiction convention called Worldcon. It was fun. Yeah, that would have been like a much better movie than Terminator 3, which I thought was pretty fucking garbo. And then Terminator 4, what are they doing? They just really went off the rails there. All right. Well, enough talking about Terminators. Irishman, welcome to the stream. This is a novel about mind control, telepathy, and alien first contact. We've been editing it for the past 46 days. I'm 22. My name is for Stan Lee. He was born in 1922. All right. Well, shouts to Stan Lee. I like that old Spider-Man. What do we got here? Mm-hmm. It was a long drive to Marion. No, I know all about that Robert Johnson there. Yeah, I'm from New Orleans. Johnson is I believe he's a little bit more northerly there. But yeah, I listen to a lot of his music there. I'm a big fan of that blues music. So you have like these two legendary people tacked onto the end of your name, but who are you? You know what I'm saying? And what do you aspire to be? There's a long drive to Marion. Louis Armstrong's from, yeah, he's an original son of, he's probably the most famous jazz player from New Orleans of all time. Yeah, he's a fucking legend right there. And in a city where there are a lot of famous horn players, but Louis Armstrong, by far, the most famous. I don't think Miles Davis is from, Miles Davis and Jonathan, or Jonathan, and John Coltrane, probably the most famous fucking horn players of all time, but definitely Louis Armstrong is like the face of New Orleans right there. That's timeless. Call me movie. Let me see. I'm Tom. I do writing and photography as hobbies. Well, welcome, Tom. Yeah, I'm Zach, and this is my 8th novel. So yeah, and writing is not a hobby for me. It's something I do every day. I'm trapped. All right, so I'm gonna get down to it. The methodology that we use is where I read aloud everything, and then we try to just make sure that it tracks. And then afterward, we take some audience suggestions, but mainly I take a look at that during the pauses. This chapter is going to be particularly difficult. There's going to be a fair amount of rewriting happening in this one. It's a really important chapter. This is a chapter where one of the characters is revealed to have infected the other one with like potentially an alien parasite or something. So we're going to work down to it. So this is what I want. There's no fight left in Dan. There's no fight left in Dan. Freya suggested they drive to Marion for dinner. Yeah, pleasure to meet you there. And then I hope to see your book in a library today. It's possible. Right now, you can view all my existing books. They're all on Amazon, and they're also available for free on my website, zachzyz.com. You'll see it scrolling by in the chat from time to time. But yeah, there's some solid books there. Definitely something for everybody if you like fantasy or science fiction or indie authors. How does he nod? So I really want to get this paragraph right, but that is not. There's no fight left in Dan. I nodded acquiescence. How do you spell that? Acquiescence. Okay. There's no fight left in Dan. Freya suggested they drive all the way to Marion for dinner, and he nodded in acquiescence. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see how that tracks. There's no fight left in Dan. Freya suggested they drive all the way to Marion for dinner, and he nodded his acquiescence and threw the car in drive. Threw the car in gear. Let's make it a Toyota. And threw the Toyota in gear. It felt like he would have responded the same way if Freya had asked him to drive into the ocean. I love that. So there is there is a Pixies song that I fucking love. It's called "Wave of Mutilation," and one of the first lyrics of the song in the sort of intro is "Drive my car into the ocean," and that always really resonated with me because I used to live on Highway 1, and there are like these long stretches of road that weave on high cliffs over this perfect cerulean sea, and the whole time that you're driving, all you can think about is how fucking beautiful it would be, because there are not guardrails in a lot of spots, and in fact there are some little dirt sort of hummels that would serve as perfect fucking ramps for a Thelma and Louise moment. And like literally about half the time that you're driving on this road, you're grappling with this Thanos urge of just ramping your car right into the ocean off of the cliff. What a way to go. God, that'd be so fucking glorious. Obviously, I've never done it so far, and that's not the way that I would opt to kill myself, but it would be a pretty fucking gangsta way to go. I gotta tell you that. Or imagine surviving that and like somehow swimming to shore with like a bunch of vertebrae compacted and fucking clavicle broken and everything from the airbag. God, what a G. Oh, and here I am sitting in Brooklyn. The heater was cranked as high as it could go, but the air only dried them out. Their insides remained raw and frozen. So this is after they have had a really traumatic experience together, where their minds were linked, and then the link was broken, kind of because of Freya. So yeah, it's a hard pill to fucking swallow. Such a better intro paragraph there. We only put like maybe 10 or 15 minutes into that intro paragraph, but now listen to it. There was no fight left in Dan. Freya suggested they drive all the way to Marion for dinner, and he nodded his acquiescence and threw the Toyota in gear. It felt like he would have responded the same way if Freya asked him to drive into the ocean. The heater was cranked as high as it could go, but the air only dried them out. Their insides remained raw and frozen. Hoan Kiem was the only... I wonder how you pronounce that. How to pronounce Hoan Kiem in Vietnamese?
Hoàng Kim.
Hoan Kiem?
Hoàn Kiếm.
Hoan Kiem? Okay, so I like that.
Hoàn Kiếm.
Hoan Kiem. Hoan Kiem was the only Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction. What am I trying to say here? Hoan Kiem was the only Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction. If any, Ho and Kim was the only Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction, but they didn't rest on their monopoly. If anything, the food and decor were slightly too ambitious for the locals. They were kept afloat by skier traffic from resorts. Mm-hmm. Uh, I think skier traffic from resorts. They were kept afloat by. What are we trying to say there? Distant skiers. They were kept afloat by traffic from ski resorts. Is there a turnpike in that state? Turnpikes are always a good visual. I wonder. Interstate 95. Wow, is 95 a fucking turnpike in Maine? That'd be awful. Maine Turnpike, toll road. All right, well, shout outs to not fucking minimizing. Yeah, 95 is a turnpike in Maine. So just for reference here on where they would be at. So that's over there in, they'd be up here, like by the forks, basically. This is where this is taking place. So when we say like there's no Vietnamese food for 100 miles in any direction, we're lying a little bit. In fact, Bangor is probably about 100 miles away. But no, actually, we're not lagging. So this takes. I'm not sure if we would think of this as being in the Carabasset Valley. I think the Forks, and like they're somewhere over here in this part of Maine, right here. Wow. Although maybe I should make them over here in Winterville. That'd be gangsta. God, there's fucking nothing up there. But I think at some point they have to drive all the way to Bangor for a concert. So it can't be too far away. Turnpikes are more lonely than a highway. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, it definitely would not be a turnpike in that part of the state. Hoan Kim was the only Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction, but they didn't rest on the monopoly. If anything, the food and decor were slightly too ambitious for the locals. Out-of-towners. Out-of-towners visiting ski resorts kept them afloat. So, like, again, we want to shoehorn in these water memes everywhere that we can. It was definitely a Randall place. It was a Randall place. The owners were Mike and Steve, two brothers from New Orleans. Randall used to take their money playing cutthroat and then lose it right back playing Tien Len. Let's make sure I'm using Tien Len right. I think that's just Big Ten. Vietnamese cards, Killer 13, Bomb. It's a shedding game. So it's not Big Ten. Big Two. Big Two is the Chinese game. Shedding games. I always thought of these as climbing games, not shedding games. It's considered the national card game of Vietnam. Game intended and best for 4 players. I wonder who Randall's fourth would be. But I do agree with Stratum that Turnpike sounds more lonely than a highway. Everybody's been driving on a turnpike at like 2 in the morning, and there's fucking nobody there. There's like fog rolling over the hills, and there's nothing in the world but the radio and like the glow of the console. It's gangster. Now I want to go on a fucking road trip just thinking about that. The owners were Mike and Steve Nguyen. How the fuck do you pronounce Nguyen? This is another one I've always wondered. Let's see. Nguyen. All right, so there are like 13 different pronunciations. Let's see. Thai Nguyen, Vietnamese.
Win.
Ween? Oh yeah, it is more like wing. Uh,
Wingley.
Wingley.
Nguyễn.
All right, so it's wing. The owners were Mike and Steve Wing, two brothers from New Orleans. Randall used to take their money playing cutthroat and then lose it right back playing Tien Lin. Freya liked the Wings. The pair were like a comedy duo. The brothers were like a comedy duo. Mike had a strong accent and he was always serious. Steve was fully Americanized and always teasing. Steve was a fully Americanized goof who was always teasing his older brother. I think this is like a little bit too much exposition right here. Do they talk on this drive at all? They drove for almost an hour in silence. Hoan Kim was the only Vietnamese. Okay, cool. It was a Randall place. The owners were Mike and Steve Nguyen, two brothers from New Orleans. Randall used to take their money playing cutthroat and lose it right back playing Tien Lin. So Tien Lin isn't a good. I think Big Two. Let's see. There is a version of 13. Um, similarly to the standard version. Let me see. Once the game is playable with only 2 or 3 players, they love gambling. I think it's a lot like Tichu. Three of Spades starts. Okay. Yeah, you can play Tien Lin with 3 players. It's just not ideal. I just didn't want to have them playing Tunk, which is what I would have played as a 3-player gambling game. Because it's too southern and jailhouse. I want to think of arriving there as more. I think we get into that a little bit later. Wow, we got a bunch of shit from this. Hold on, let's go further into the chapter. So I think later in this chapter we talk about. All right, so avert your eyes if you don't want spoilers as to what happens in the chapter, but I think we talk about it at the very end. But I think a really good note there to really good note to add something about the description of the thing. Different. What happens when they leave this place? And so, oh wow, they don't even get a fucking empty restaurant. Sorry for what I was saying yesterday. Yeah, look away, look away. Oh, I could actually just block the screen while I'm getting. Yeah, we never talk about the fucking description there. Cool. All right, so yeah, it's important to. Now we can come up with a description of this guy. Okay, so if you guys want, you could tell me what two stores it's nestled between. So Freya suggested they drive all the way to Marion for dinner, and he nodded his acquiescence and threw the Toyota in gear. It felt like they drove for almost an hour in silence. When they arrived at Marion, Freya gave directions, hating the sound of her own voice. Does that add up? They drove less than an hour and got to a place approximately. We don't say how far away it is. The only thing that we say is that it's the only Vietnamese restaurant for like 100 miles in any direction. We're not using real towns here in Maine. I'm almost on the border of Canada, or where presumably you could get some decent Vietnamese food if you like hopped over to fucking Toronto or something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's think about where this restaurant would be. So what day is this? This is this happens on a Friday night, I think. Right? Because last night was fucking uh last night was the visit to the hospital, and tonight so this is Friday night in town. Mm-hmm. So they're relatively high end, so they couldn't just be um, a Vietnamese store and a McDonald's. Oh, so we've got a piano store and an Obama phone store, a sports store and a Gap, a lawyer and a bail bondsman. Um, Let me think. What do I feel like is next to this restaurant? And this is like a relatively hick town in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They drove for almost an hour in silence. Freya gave directions once they arrived at Marion, hating the sound of her own voice. It was Friday night, but the town was dead. Without snow, there was no reason. Dan must have been wondering why she. Yeah. A Whole Foods and a Reebok, a Vietnam travel agent, a Starbucks and another Starbucks. I like the Starbucks and the other Starbucks. I don't think we're going to describe the other stores in the strip mall. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do we got here? I think it's that Yoda dude. A pawn shop. I have a roast for my friend. Can you tell me what you think? Oh, so apparently Spaethiwa is now a Bernie bro, working to elect the first communist to the United States government since Woodrow Wilson. So shout outs to that. And yeah, go ahead and hit us with your roast here. We're just, like writing a fucking novel at the moment. Nothing important. God damn. Let's take a look. So we've only gotten like 2 paragraphs into this. This could be another like week-long chapter to plow through. But honestly, those are good edits. I really, really like anywhere where you see that I have not described the setting of somewhere appropriately. Please, 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 God, tell me. Like, thank you so much for bringing that up, Stratum. Because you're right. Like, you want to know where you're at before you want to know about like 2 brothers from New Orleans that you don't give a fuck about. So sad note. Sad note. Cool. Mm-hmm. Just wait, Freya said when Dan raised his eyebrows at her. Maybe her thoughts were tawdry and she didn't deserve unity, but Freya still knew how to pick out a restaurant. It's a nice shop in a sad strip mall. Yeah, yeah. So we may have to pare down a little bit the description of these guys. Uh, so just wait, Freya said when Dan raised his eyebrows at her. Maybe her thoughts were tawdry and she didn't deserve unity, but Freya still knew how to pick out a restaurant. Like that. I like that. I like the note of defiance there in the middle of these guys just drove an hour and they didn't speak to each other except for directions. These guys are like an open wound after that experience, and I like that carries on a little bit more because we didn't have that like hour of silence drive there. We didn't have a lot of these things. And so say that you're a reader just coming into this. Um, like I think immediately you're like, why are they like this? Or like, what are they so upset about? Um, so Hon Kim was the only only real Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction, but they didn't rest on their monopoly. If anything, the food and decor were slightly too ambitious. Uh, Mm. I thought that they might have like a consignment shop. Let's call it a plate glass window. The plate glass window was so fogged up they could only see lights glowing faintly. Cool. Oh. Just wait, Freya said when Dan raised his eyebrows at her. Maybe her thoughts were tawdry and she didn't deserve unity, but Freya still knew how to pick out a restaurant. Hoan Kiem was the only real Vietnamese restaurant for 100 miles in any direction, but they didn't rest on their monopoly. If anything, the food and decor were slightly too ambitious for the locals. Out-of-towners visiting ski resorts kept them afloat. I wonder if they could have a fucking Michelin star. That would be like really. That's too much. That's too much. Yeah, you can't have a fucking star. It was a Randall place. The owners were Mike and Steve Nguyen. Win. The owners were Mike and Steve Nguyen, two brothers from New Orleans. Randall used to take their money playing cutthroat and lose it right back to them playing Big Ten. Playing Tien Len. I think we have to cut this out. The brothers were an odd couple. An odd couple. Mike was stern with a strong accent. Steve was fully Americanized and always teasing his older brother. Randall had never told Freya why the pair had left the South, but he had implied it wasn't by choice. She could almost taste their homesickness. On Saturdays they had crawfish, and at the front of the restaurant there was an indoor waterfall pool. At the front of the restaurant there was a waterfall pond, teeming with turtles destined for the pot. I like that it's teeming with turtles. Trey and Dan arrived in the lull after a large party had left. The waitress was cleaning up. The waitress was cleaning up 3 tables. A waitress was cleaning up 3 tables that had been pushed together. They were the only ones there. Mm-hmm. So shoutouts to being the only ones there on a Friday night. Like there's nobody keeping them afloat. Kind of fancy, Dan said, and Freya wished she would have thought about how underdressed they were. The walls were a spotless white with gallery lighting. We can take out the gallery lighting. The walls were a spotless white. The tables and chairs were made of heavy slabs of black oak. The waitress sat them next to the turtle pond, and for a few moments. Mhm. There was a vent directly over the pond blowing warm air for the turtles, and Freya was glad to benefit. I think we'll be okay. Don't ask for spicy unless you really like spicy, though. They're pretty serious about it. Even the medium is respectable. Even medium spicy here is respectable. Dan nodded at her warning and peered at the menu, looking uncertain. What should I get? I've never had Vietnamese before. I always get the beef pho. It's amazing here. Don't they have lungs in that? Dan asked. Just a little. Ask for no tripe if you don't want it. Do you want to get coffee? It's fancy here. Was there a D in the middle of that sentence? Hmm. And Freya smiled. Oh, I love, like, some of these cuts that we're making are just helping so much. Hell yeah. Coffee would be amazing. For the first time since the track, Dan smiled, and Freya smiled back. She was excited to share this with him. Dan's eyes dropped back to the menu, and he shifted in his seat. Freya gave him a questioning look, and he leaned in close, speaking in a dire whisper. Freya, this is $19. She was immediately relieved. let's let's have like a physical action. Freya felt relieved. It was the first problem today she could actually fix. I'll get it, don't worry. You drove me all the way out there. You drove us all the way out here. I can't let you pay for me, Dan protested. I can't let you pay for me, he protested. Dan, 30 minutes ago I was... Oh, Good call. Dan, an hour ago I was you, Freya said, and something in the way she said it stung them both. Finally, he shrugged in unhappy acceptance. They had bigger things to worry about. The waitress finished clearing the tables and splitting them apart into a neat row. Her voice was friendly but forced. Freya noticed the dark circles under her eyes and felt a pang of sympathy. She was obviously tired. Freya could relate. Hmm. Yeah. Turning over the menu, Freya toyed with the idea of trying something new, but she knew she would order the same spicy beef pho as always. It was just too good to deviate. Dan took her suggestion and ordered the same, and they ordered coffee. They waited until the waitress was in the kitchen to start their conversation. They didn't want to be overheard. Okay, so what's happening to us? Will it happen again? Freya could hear the hunger in Dan's voice. The desire to return to the feeling they'd shared on the track was rising at the back of her thoughts, crowding out everything else. I hope so, Freya said, but I'm afraid of wanting something so much. It feels dangerous, like this could swallow us. It feels like this could swallow us. Yeah, better. Dan nodded. For a while, they couldn't figure out what to say. Her thoughts kept sliding back to the park. They'd been so close, and now it seemed hopeless to try and communicate with mere words. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so cool, Dan said. The coffee arrived, served in glass mugs with just a layer of condensed milk at the bottom. The mugs were capped with individual coffee presses. The coffee was in a gleaming chrome, or mm-hmm. What's the name for? What's the name for a short hot top hat? Stingy brim. Oh, I like the name of that. A beanie. Oh, they do look like boaters, but I don't think you can use boater there. I think the Hasids wear hats like this sometimes. I like the idea of a chrome sombrero. That'd be an awesome name for a chrome sombrero. So it's a book, apparently. On the run from the Wisconsin Mafia for gambling deck, laid off snowmobile factory whirl Joe Kromansky. 2 ratings for chrome sombrero. Flees to an abandoned houseboat in the Florida Keys, accompanied by a mysterious woman. He leads a ragged expedition to Cuba to steal Fidel Castro's legendary baseball collection, only to find that his real trouble has begun: fatherhood. Wow, dude, don't write your own fucking blurb. Jesus. Look at this author, Toto. Look at this nigga. Well, his friends like it. So shout outs to that guy. But yeah, I think the title is wasted on this book. I say it without having. Maybe he's fucking brilliant. I don't know. But I was just hoping that I would find like a fucking cyberpunk mariachi band. Hell yeah. That would be so gangsta. Anyhow, sadly, not gonna happen. I'm putting it in there. Tiny chrome sombreros. Fucking amazing. Freya showed Dan the little latch to start the coffee drip. It's so cool. I think chrome sombreros is something that might not survive. I know I'm enamored with it right now, but really, it's a little much, don't you think? I mean, are you really visualizing like an individual coffee press Um, I think we're wasting too many words on that, but I like. Hold on, I'm actually going to comment. Love it. That's so cool, Dan said, lifting the little cap on his press to see the apparatus underneath. I'm glad we don't have these at the diner. Imagine having to wash one for every cup of coffee. It's so worth it, Freya. It's worth it, Freya assured him. When the coffee had brewed completely, she lifted off the filter and stirred gently with a little spoon until Jovian clouds of milk roiled through her glass. She took a sip. It was so sweet and strong. Dan watched her and did the same. Hands clasped around the hot mug, with coffee warmth spreading through her chest. Freya felt like she was finally beginning to thaw. She reached her hand across the table to Dan and was relieved when he set his hand on hers. Their eyes met, and for a moment they didn't need words. She knew she was about. She was about to ruin everything again. Their eyes met, and for a moment they didn't need words. Freya wished she could just look at him forever. Freya wished she could just stare at him forever. She let the moment linger for as long as she could. Oh, guten Tag. Ah, Achlen. Ja, Rabon. كيف حال? Guten Morgen. Oh, oh. Yeah, we're getting into it here. Doing some like it's funny how like sometimes we're doing this work and like everything just glides by, and sometimes it's just straight up. Change up this chair because it's not quite at the right height, and I'm a little bit stooped over, and I've actually been having like some ridiculous neck pain actually. So like I think I need to raise this up a little bit. So we'll try and make a change in a little bit. Let me see. She let the moment linger for as long as she could. In a few moments, she was going to ruin everything again. Freya wished she could just stare at him forever. She let the moment linger for as long as possible. She let the moment linger for as long as she could. In a few minutes, she was going to ruin everything again. So I like that. That's a lot of she's in that sentence. She. But there's no real substitute for that pronoun unless she was to suddenly identify as a different gender mid fucking sentence, which would make for a decent science fiction book. Whoa, stealth transphobia right there. Let me see. Okay, are you ready? Freya asked. There was a long pause before he nodded. She slid her hand back across the table and into her pocket. She set the starball on the table between them. Dan recognized Freya's lucky marble. Freya's lucky marble. Dan recognized Freya's lucky marble. Oh, so there, because these are single quotes indicating, it's not indicating sarcasm, but it's indicating that that's not actually what she is. So it's like air quotes. I think there's some, yeah, let me see. Can you use single quotes? Okay, so scare quotes is what we would call them here. In a non-standard quibble marks. Usage imply doubt or ambiguity or outright contempt. Groupies were following the band. I'm going to describe scare quotes as the entity, adding that they kill the narrative, they kill storytelling. They are a writer's assault on his or her own words. The scare quote is the perfect device for making an insinuation without proving it, or even necessarily making clear what you were insinuating. Air quotes or finger quotes. Okay, I think... yeah, so they are scare quotes there. I think they're appropriate right there. Like, we don't want to... we want to indicate that Dan recognizes this is not just a fucking lucky marble right there. And I think... ooh, should they be single quotes? Yeah, they want to be... They have to be single quotes there. Oh, shit. Shoutouts to them.
Your dedication and hard work is helping me, my friend.
Hell
Keep
yeah.
not pussying out.
Hell yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, there have been so many mornings where I've just been wanted to like fucking fuck off. I want so when I have an idea for a science fiction story, I type it in my notes, and because I can't actually go out and write these stories right now, I have to keep working on this. I just have like a fucking ream of ideas for different stories that I want to write just sitting in my fucking notes, and I can't do anything about them until this stream is completed. And I know the thing is that they lose power over time. Ideas don't gain potency, and they're difficult. Like rekindling an idea that like strikes you that you want to write about it is like trying to reignite a star. You know what I mean? And I didn't even fucking see Primer, so I don't know how that's done. I think this was like a reoccurring idea that I had for a little bit that I managed to reignite somehow. Mm-hmm. Ooh. So, consistent with periods within quotes. So we actually are consistent with. There is a rule for when you put a period inside of quotations. Just about always, the period will come inside of the quotation. I can't remember why it's not there here. One, because they're scare quotes. They're not. The object is fully within the sentence. I don't know how to explain it, but I guarantee that this is right. Search for blank and blank can reveal it. But also, just to give like a note on granularity, granular. Why am I saying granular? Just to give a note on the level of the resolution that we're doing this edit at. Things like period placement and comma placement and removing spaces. It's great if we can do that, but that's work for a proofreader, right? And I will definitely employ a proofreader who is supposed to get. So we want to have as few of those as possible. But just in order of importance there, we don't almost never want to like do a search and go back in the thing to get it there. I think really in my gut, I feel that this is right. But what? Ooh, no, it looks wrong, capitalized. Yeah, it's definitely. Dan recognized Freya's lucky marble. He turned over his hand to see to. Ooh, oh god, now it looks way fucking wrong to me there. Oh, all this looks wrong. Oh, that I gotta go with that. That's like what my gut is. Eventually, like if we got this stream like a little bit more popular, we could potentially get in some real fucking editors out here. Like if I wasn't so politically unacceptable, I could be like shilling this to the whole science fiction fandom or whatever there. But really, it's not a good idea for me to have that much exposure just because of who I am and what I think. Um, but and also like it's this is like the right number of people for what we have going on here. Like an audience of like 20 or 30 people. I would hate to see like the good comments getting lost in the fucking whatever there. Like 3 or 4 active people working. Perfect. Dan recognized Freya's lucky marble. He turned over his hand to look at his palm. I wanna I wanna include blood there rather than just say where he'd been stuck. Dan recognized the lucky marble Freya was holding. Let's try this out in a few different ways, because yes, it does kind of stick out to me there. Mm, fuck it, we'll do it live. Yeah, I think that's all right. I can avoid the period by adding some more words. I think this is okay. Yeah, like I said, we don't have to be 100% on punctuation. It's good if we're as close as we can get, but it shouldn't detract from the editing work that we're doing, because frankly, like this whole chapter could get cut. You know what I mean? So it doesn't behoove us to be perfect, but we'll try anyway. That does look right to my eyes. Anybody who feels like researching the correct thing is welcome to do it. And after this, it would be useful for me to review appropriate quotations, but I want to get a little deeper into this. I think once, yeah, that doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. He had convinced himself the jab in his palm was only a dream, but it was real. Dan's hands drifted to the sides of the heavy oak tabletop. As Freya was worried he was about to flip the table. Dan's hands drifted to the sides of the heavy oak table. Freya was worried he was about to flip it over. There was a look in his eyes as if he just felt the first rumblings of an earthquake. Are you scared? Freya asked. Yes, Dan said simply. They were well past trying to act tough. Okay, wait a few seconds. Try not to think about anything. Just pay attention to how you feel. Dan nodded with his mouth tight. His eyes were locked on the orb. Do you feel something in you fighting against the fear? Like a cool feeling? Something that's not quite you? His eyes shot up at her. He shut his eyes, plumbing himself. Oh, I don't think you can say plumbing himself. I don't think that tracks. So what we're looking for there is like a plumb line. You know what I'm talking about? But just there are too many associations with jacking off, I think, for that to work out. Dan shut his eyes as he searched himself. I feel it. I felt that before, too. I didn't know what it was. The star ball. This orb is doing it. If you touch it, you'll feel that it's hot. If you touch it, you can feel that it gets hot when it's working. The star ball. This orb is doing that. If you touch it, you can feel that it gets hot when it's working. Will it poke me again? Dan asked, a tremble in his voice. I don't think so. It only stuck me once. Wait, it stuck you too? Wait, it stuck you too? No. It stuck you too? It only got me once. It stuck you too? Yes, the night I found it. Until you got poked, I had convinced myself I'd only imagine it. Mm-hmm. Until it got you, I had convinced myself I was just imagining it. I've been kind of assuming I'm going crazy. Yeah, yes, on the night I found it. Until it got you, I had convinced myself I was just imagining it. I thought I was just going crazy. You don't have to touch it if you don't want to. Dan hesitated, but then he reached out and gently touched the orb with the tip of... We don't need gently. Dan hesitated, but then he reached out and touched the orb with the tip of his finger. He looked at it afterward. He looked at his fingertip afterward. There was no blood. Dan hesitated, but then he reached out and touched the orb with the tip of his index finger. He looked at the fingertip afterward. There was no blood. Yeah, because you could see it. Yeah, I would do that. I would look at the finger afterward. So I think that's a real response. It's definitely heating up. Okay, yeah. Okay, I feel it. It's definitely heating up. What's inside of it? I don't know. There has to be some kind of battery or power source. It gets hot whenever it's working to make a connection between us, or trying to keep us from freaking out. I felt it getting hot in your pocket when we were, Dan struggled for words. Together, he concluded. His eyes shot from the starball to Freya. He was anxious. Freya, what is this thing? I don't really know what it is. Initially, I thought it was a meteorite. This was in a shell of, I found it encased in a shell of nickel about the size of a baseball. It crashed into the Silas River during the torrids. What are torrids? Do people really not know that? Freya wondered. She reminded herself not everyone had grown up with an astronomy buff for her father. With an astronomy buff father. With an astronomy buff as a father. It's a yearly meteor shower, caused by one of the Apollo group asteroids that might have broken off the Encke comet. I don't think this is a torrid meteorite, by the way. Meteorites are usually less than 10% nickel. They tend to be more iron and rock. The starball was perfectly nested at its center, like it was made for it. You call it a starball? Yeah, not very creative, I guess. It's very dense and heavy for its size. Did you notice? Can I? Dan asked, and she nodded. He picked up the starball and hefted it in one hand, and then in the other, and then he nodded. Yeah, is it lead at the center or something? I don't know for sure, but I think it's too heavy to be lead. I've looked at the starball under a microscope. That purple surface is actually a grid of triangles. It's a made thing. It's not natural, and I don't think it was made by humans. I think this is either an alien probe, or it is itself an alien. Dan shut his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, she could see he was struggling. Freya was silent, trying to let him absorb the idea. The waitress came to check on them, and as she approached, Freya instinctively hid the starball beneath her palm. Dan's hand reached out to cover hers. When the waitress left them, Dan stared at his hand, as if unsure why he'd done that. He flexed his fingers and wrung his wrist. He flexed his fingers and wrung his wrist. It made me do that, he said, his face growing pale. It's in my head. Freya, did you know that this was an alien when you handed it to me? There was accusation in his voice. No, we need to take out accusation in his voice. Oh, do we? Let's think about the work that it's doing there. This sounds awesome. Oh, shoot. I think you're the first person that has ever chatted on Mixer ever. So shouts to King Charles 9911. Yeah, so the working title for this is GRAVID. Let me see. I'm going to get it the day that it comes out. Oh, awesome. Yeah, if you're interested in my writing at all, you can go to www.zachzyz.com. All my books are available there for free. There are 5 or 6 that are available for download there. And they're also on Amazon if you prefer like a print copy. You can read everything that we've done in this book up to today. I think we're up to about chapter 56 on the story there, or you can check it out on Wattpad if you want like the experience of reading on Wattpad. Yeah, I really like this book. We're just like halfway through. We've only been building up to some of the really cool ideas that show up later in this book. I love telepathy as a theme, and we're trying to do like a very, very non-hokey interpretation of what it's like to deal with significant grief and depression when two people can read each other's minds. Yeah. Well, I think they're great, but feel free to judge for yourself. You got nothing to lose but the time you spend reading them, because they're for free. Yeah, and later today, I'm going to try and work on an audiobook for the novel Survival Mode, which I've been putting off for like a really long time. And yeah, love writing. Do it every day. I've been working on this book. Got started in November of 2016, and I finished writing it in November. November, I think, 1st. No, I started writing November 1st, 2016, and finished it on November 1st of 2019. So it's about 3 years on this guy. So yeah, enjoy it. Yeah, on my website, it has like some of the other stuff that I do. But yeah, glad you're enjoying it. And thanks for being the first person ever to comment on Mixer. We just kind of added it as a lark. I didn't know if anybody would ever check it out. But we're also on like Picarto and DLive and Facebook and all kinds of crazy jazz right there. Oh yeah. But yeah, hopefully I would assume that anybody finding this is a writer themselves. So yeah, always glad to check out whatever stuff you guys are working on as well. But yeah, no worries there. So what do we got here? Yeah, this is really meant to be so this the chapter that we're working on right now is sort of the confrontation chapter where these two characters reveal what's been going on. Our protagonist is the character Freya Jokla. She's 16 years old and has been grappling for the last 6 months or so with the death of her father. This is a young man that she's interested in. His name is Dan Gregulus, and sort of the drama in his life is that his family is relatively poor, and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. If he can't manage to get a scholarship or something like that, he may have to join the military. He works like a part-time job as a diner, trying to make ends meet, and life is relatively difficult for him. And he had some trauma in his life as well. About 5 years previous to when the story is being told, his twin sister died. So yeah, there's a lot of sadness running through this book. But now we're getting to the naked lunch part of the story. Oh no. So I think we are going to keep the accusation in his voice. That's one where I'd be almost tempted to. Let's take it out. Yeah, it's too much. We're sort of beating the reader over the head with it. Oh no. Freya's stomach sank. This was what she'd been afraid of. I'm really sorry. I didn't know it would jab you. I just wasn't thinking. I really don't know what this thing is or what's happening to us. I'm only guessing on all of this. I'm really sorry. I didn't know it would jab you. I just wasn't thinking. I'm only guessing about all of this. I just don't know. What if we're like infected with it? Let's take out like. What if we're infected with it? What if it's controlling us? What if this starball made you hand it to me because he wanted me to catch this too? Freya didn't have an answer for Dan. Freya didn't have an answer. It's trying to get me to stop freaking out right now. I can feel it, Dan said. There was a wild look in his eyes, like he might be about to run screaming out of the restaurant and drive away. Please, Freya trailed, afraid she was about to start crying. How do you know? How do you know it isn't making us do whatever it wants? His voice was raised. This should be Dan's. Dan's voice was raised. There was an almost manic quality to it. The waitress emerged from the kitchen to see what the commotion was, and Dan lowered his head, looking a little... And Dan lowered his head and gave an apologetic wave. The starball was hot against Freya's palm. I hate people who fight in restaurants, Dan said, with a strangely absent look. Freya wondered if the starball was starting to have an effect on him. It's a totally fair question. Maybe it is controlling me, Freya said, but it hasn't done anything bad. It's the opposite. Yeah, I'm taking this out because so many points in this chapter, she has said, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. We can just take this out. We already know. In a real conversation, somebody would absolutely say, I don't know, like 50 times in this, especially when they're this unsure about it. But because we're writing a novel here, our conversations, it's more important that they flow and provide new information with every line than that they're a realistic representation of what a conversation actually would be. Because, I mean, keep in mind, in like real life, there would be no Starball. They would just be using their latent psionic powers to fucking take over the United States government for mutant kind. Get some Sentinels up in there. Hell yeah. I love this line right here where Dan says, I hate people who fight in restaurants. And then he just like placids out right there. It really, in that line, it says a lot about his character. Because in other scenes, we can see him kind of striving to be a peacemaker. And throughout the book, like one of his character traits is that he tries to de-escalate conflict and be the bigger person in a lot of situations. And you can just see where there's been significant fighting between his parents before in his life, and that the Freya character relates to that because her parents were like super fighty and so forth, and they have a little of that like scarred children thing happening right there. I was like having dinner with my girlfriend, and I didn't have like a super poor upbringing or whatever, but like towards the end of it, like there was like a little bit of salad left, and we were like throwing it out, and I'm like, fuck, I should have eaten that. And there's no reason for, I was full. I didn't need to eat more. I ate too much as it is. And like we were like both just having this moment, like, yep, child of poverty right there. And we're not in actual poverty, but like growing up, definitely, I remember like feeling that pressure not to waste everything. And she also had talked with me before about sort of having to come to the realization that it wasn't necessary to eat everything that was given to her, just because it was there, and just things that had kind of been drilled into us. And I think a lot of things that are you encounter, I mean, maybe it's right, but like things that happen to you when you're young really just echo throughout your entire life. So if this guy's parents were like fighting all the time, and he had to like sit there as a child in a restaurant while his parents are going at it, I could totally see that echoing forward to this point in the character. And it's one of the things that I like about the Dan Gregulus character. During this rewrite, we're trying to add actually some more flaws to him, because I think that character is too much of like a all good everyman or whatever, and I want to focus a little bit more on his dark side, which I don't think we do a good job of so far. So anyhow. But it hasn't done anything bad. It's the opposite. She paused to look at Dan. He was grappling with this. Freya paused to look at Dan. She hated to see him struggling like this. She slipped the starball into her pocket and slid her hand across the table to him, afraid he wouldn't take it. But he did. He was staring at her intently, searching for answers. Desperate for answers. I like desperate better. Dan, she began, and then stopped herself until she was sure she could say it. She was just a breath or two ahead of bursting into tears. When I found it, I was at the river to drown myself, she admitted at last. Okay, so we need to go back to the previous chapter. I think she already admitted that she was trying to drown herself. and it has to be a big reveal, right? So I think we need to go back and take out the part where she admits she tried to drown herself previously, because we need the impact of revealing it here is so much greater than whatever. So this is like, I wish I could do important notes in a different color or something like that. And this is so important that I want to go to it at the end of this editing session. So if you're still here, feel free to remind me, but really, really important. The scene where that happens is the one where the two of them are sitting in the Silas River Park under the Thoreau Bridge. The words resonated in the air, and a long silence followed them. For the first time, Freya noticed the music in the background. Not to drown him out. For the first time, Freya noticed. Freya noticed the waitress had turned on. Okay, cool. So this is like kind of like an interesting audio aside there, where Freya became aware the waitress had turned up the background music to mask their argument. The sound of the waterfall drowned out all but the highest notes. Can I put the... Yeah, I think I can do that. Hold on. Okay, so that should work right there. It didn't send to Picaro, but it did send to Mixer. So cool. Yeah, ZaxyYZ.com. And they're all there. Let me see. Yeah, I've been published in like a few different places, like on Tor.com and in a magazine called The Kaleidocast, or it's like a podcast or whatever. But mostly it's just shit that I put out myself. I used to be co-own a small publishing company, but that partnership dissolved, and so now it's mostly just me doing this. Real talk. Okay, and so we already noted that that we have to do that admission right there. How close did you come? Dan asked. He had an almost clinical interest that reminded her of Dr. Garbuglio. It reminded Freya of Dr. Garbuglio. I went into the river. I barely made it out, she said. Well, I don't think... It wasn't the only time. All this terrible shit keeps happening to me. I keep being almost at that point, but the starball saves me. I keep being almost ready to jump, but the starball saves me every time. It's the only reason I'm here. Okay, I went into the river. I barely made it out, Freya said. I went into the river and barely made it out. I went into the river. I barely made it out, Freya said. It wasn't the only time. All this terrible shit keeps happening to me. I keep being almost ready to jump, but the starball saves me every time. It's the only reason I'm still here. Her words hurt him. She could see his expression twisting with pain. Her words hurt Dan. His expression twisted with pain, and she felt just awful. Why was she putting this on him? Does Dr. Garbuglio know anything about this? Have you told Dr. Garbuglio? I haven't told him anything about the starball. I haven't told him anything. He caught me with his hand. He can't know about the starball. He caught me with his hand in my pocket during therapy. No one can know about the starball. Okay, cool. I haven't told him anything. No one can know about the starball. He caught me with my hand in my pocket, but I told him it was just a marble. He didn't touch it. Does he know you went in? Dan said, and she noticed a strange tendency to euphemism again. Went in. She shook her head. If I had told him, he would have sent me to Spring Harbor. I'd probably still be locked up there. Have you told Dr. Garbo? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That should be a question mark. Dan's mouth was tight. His bottom lip trembled slightly. He didn't argue with her or tell her what she should have done. His hand only squeezed hers, and she was grateful. She closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. I don't think they're holding hands at that point. Oh, he did. He takes your hand again. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Object permanence, boys. It's vital. Has to happen. Yeah, so my books are Xanon Inc., The Master Arcanist, Hawks at the Diner, Survival Mode, and The Right to Bear Arms. And if you're looking for a place to get into it, I can give you like a quick summary of each of them. My first book was Survival Mode. It's a like action-packed science fiction survival story. It's kind of like The Martian if Mark Watley fixed all his problems with lasers. And it has themes of AI and paranoia in it. My second book was Xanon Inc. It is a really dark fantasy novel that has a lot of, it's like borderline erotica. It's about 4 adventurers who venture into like this jungle full of giant insects. And the idea of it was that they're like, you know, in a video game, if you're playing an RPG and you like go into an area that's way too high level for you and everything just destroys you, those adventurers are in the zone that's way too high level for them and getting rocked. I really enjoyed that whole thing. That's a weird book. A lot of people do not like that one, but I like it. My third book was The Right to Bear Arms, and that was the one that got published by the Kaleidocast. That is like a really sad story set in New York. It's in the not too distant future. It's about a veteran who used to play the piano, but he lost both arms in a war. Then my fourth book was, let me see, I think I released Hawks at the Diner after that. That's a story about the first female president, also near future, maybe like 10 or 15 years from today. It is about the first female president confronting her predecessor and saying, "Mr. President, I'm going to put you in jail." And he says, "Whoa, bitch, not so fast. I know something you don't know." And the whole thing is just their conversation. It takes place in an old Jewish diner outside of Washington, D.C., and I love it. I like diners. I like tense political conversations, and that book really packs a lot into just 40 short pages. Then the fifth book is The Master Arcanist, which is a story of a wizard. It's a fantasy piece about a wizard who has been a hermit for just centuries, potentially. You don't really know how long, but he realizes that he's slowly going blind on the night where this young man comes up to his tower and begs to become his apprentice. And because he's a cranky old man, he just sends this boy away on a suicide mission to get rid of him. But then the day after, he has second thoughts. He's like, why did I just kill that dude? And he realizes that it is time to take on an apprentice and maybe get back into the swing of things. Then he sets off after him and sallies forth on one final adventure. That's like a kind of slow-paced, contemplative fantasy piece, and it really tries to do a lot with the limitations of his vision and the fact that he is old. And it's like a lot of ruminating and contemplating, and I like all these books. You know, I wrote them because I love them. But that one actually it's short. It's about 180 pages or so. But I've written 3 other volumes in the series, and if I can get a publisher to bite on it, we'll put it out through hopefully a major publisher. But so far, nobody has picked it up. I think I'm just gonna be editing on Twitch.tv for like a long time before I can get any recognition. But I actually really enjoy this, like editing on stream. I love this. It makes life is so much better on stream. All right, but yeah. Just like nothing to lose. Just put the fucking EPUBs on your phone, and you're good to go. Let me see, and there's more coming out all the time, as you can see. This should be done. We'll be done editing this guy, and you'll be able to read the first draft of it, hopefully by March 31st, if we keep going like we're going. And what have we done today? We gotten through like 6 or 7 pages, which is about how much I can edit a day. So that's good. His hand squeezed hers, and she was grateful. She closed her eyes for a moment. Oh, yeah. I don't think the Starball is trying to make me do anything I don't want to. I've only felt an aversion to showing it to other people and it trying to get me to calm down. Okay, yeah, cool. I hope you enjoy that stuff. If you enjoy the books, always glad to hear from like a reader. Just shoot me a line about anything that you liked or did not like. I'm on Twitter and all that jazz. If you really enjoy them, would love to get a review on Goodreads or Amazon. Those mean a lot to me. But yeah, enjoy, and thanks for coming through here. You too can follow your dreams and probably not succeed, but have a good time trying anyway. Good luck, sir. All right, so I don't think the Starball is trying to make me do anything I don't want to. It just doesn't want me to hurt myself, and it doesn't want me to show it to other people. It seems benign. The word felt funny in her mouth, like she was describing a tumor. Does it ever talk? No. I've tried all kinds of stuff, tapping on it, seeing if it can broadcast to computers, measuring its temperature for pulses. Nothing. It's silent. Dan had that pained look again. What's wrong? Freya asked. I mean, What's wrong? Freya asked. Did you like me before you found it? Freya was struck by the question, and all of her fretting over this she hadn't anticipated. Freya paused. In all of her fretting over this, she hadn't anticipated that question. It seemed so natural to like Dan. He was handsome, he was fit, he was thoughtful. Why shouldn't she like him? But once the idea was posed, she found she couldn't answer it. Was this really her idea? Immediately she thought that she should lie, just pretend there was nothing ambiguous about. Just pretend there was nothing ambiguous about her feelings for him. But even as she considered it, she was certain if they made the connection again, the lie would immediately unravel. She couldn't conceal anything from Dan. He stared at her, waiting for an answer as her mind fell into a jumble of gross and embarrassing things she never wanted anyone to know. Hadn't she felt the same feeling coming from him? There on the edge of the bed, there'd been something big he wanted to hide, bigger than the overdose. The hope in his eyes was faltering with every second she delayed. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, that's deep, man. Fuck. All right. Felt funny in her mouth. Might be share the fun like a bean's fart. All right, hold on. Let's go back to the word came out funny, like she was describing a tumor. I like that. Yeah, like where it emerges funny. Oh. Blah. I need that microphone to stay where it's at. Jesus. I'm so fucking unprofessional on the stream, man. We have like no mic strikes on the other show. I really like this right here, where they're like dealing with an alien being, and because they're like teenagers, they're like, "Hey, did you actually like me before you found this thing?" Where it's so fucking important to him right there. Loving it. I didn't really know you before Renanin, Freya said. That was after the river. She was trying to be kind, but he saw right through the evasion. Who did she think she was fooling? An hour ago, I was you. An hour ago, I was you. Hell yeah. So all of this, the weird connection, that dream, it could all be the alien trying to push us together. Semicolon. Dan said. His eyes had become narrow, his expression hard. Shipping us. So this is one spot where we're using some slang. And I think we about have to right there. That reminds me, I have to brief you on the sapiosexual. I don't think that we can really use that as a marketing angle. I mean, it sounded amazing at the time, but I don't think like we can genuinely come from that angle. One, because those people are fucking ludicrous. You know, they just it's like the same kind of crying out for attention as being like, I'm a non-binary twinkter-queer. You know, like I can't sell that. You know, like you have to. I think you have to market true to like your core or whatever. But yeah, let me know what you found out about it. But it really is getting into the like hard thinking parts of romance much more than like my cock throbbed for you. So all this, that weird connection and the dream it could all be this alien trying to push us together, Dan said. His eyes had become narrow, his expression hard. Shipping us. It's not just... It's not... She caught herself. It's not that. Freya caught herself, trying to spare him again, and forced herself to stop and really think about how she felt. I really feel like the way I feel about you is coming from me, not it. But I can't know. Did you like me before it stuck you? Yes, definitely, Dan said, and the immediate way he said it and the earnest look on his face made her feel terrible. Wasn't it super obvious? I didn't think you would be interested in me, Freya said. The way you see me is so different from the way I see myself. Yeah, we already did that. Nice. Of course I'm interested. I never met anybody like you, Dan said, and they were both trying to reconcile the difficulty of talking now that... Of course I'm interested. I never met anyone like you, Dan said. I want to be the person you see, the person I am when we're together. I want to be worthy of that feeling, he said, and it had the almost rehearsed feeling of something he had turned over and over again in his mind, trying to find the right way to say it. Freya wasn't the only one who'd spent all day agonizing over this meeting. You are, she said, but she could see he didn't believe her any more than she could believe him. This is so hard. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. Please believe me, I didn't know this would happen. You really are amazing, Dan. You deserve way better. No, I don't, he said. Both of them were on the verge of breaking down. No, I don't, he said. Both of them were on the verge of breaking down. I really like you. I mean, you know. You felt me thinking it. Somehow, even though she knew it, even though she'd felt it, hearing Dan say the words made her pulse with joy. I feel the same way about you, Freya said, dancing along the edges of the words they each wanted to say. More. Immediate way he said it, and okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, perfect spot to remove an and. Good job. So, an important note here about point of view. In this chapter, um, before this edit, and I haven't really said much about it, but while I was doing this, before this edit, there are a few places where we talk about what Dan is thinking and feeling, um, as if the narrator can see that. But this is third person limited, right? The only, outside like a very, very few things where Freya is like surmising what the other person is feeling, we shouldn't talk about indefinite terms about what the other characters are thinking or feeling unless it's obvious from what's on their faces, right? Because our point of view for this entire fucking book, outside of scenes where she is directly in somebody else's mind, is Freya Jokla, all right? Or the Starball. So a few places in here we're having to correct for this. That's something where in our second edit we will have to do more point of view corrections. It's inevitable. They were caught in each other's eyes, each wishing the other had the courage they lacked. This is like, so that's what I'm talking about. Like this whole block was there. Here we're going to break from exactly what I just said, because I think that it's apparent to her what he's thinking enough that we can use this deviation. But that's something where an editor might come in and say, no, Zach, you can't fucking do that right there. You're breaking point of view. So I hate to say something and then immediately recant, but I think you can get away with that. And I think it's an important thing too, because I think we've all been in situations where each of us, like two people staring at each other, and there's like a word for it in some language, where two people are staring at each other, and uh, oh, hold on. Oh, Logic is telling a story in LRH that I want to read. I'm going to scroll back up for that in a second, Logic, but I'm going to try and get more into this chapter here. She took the cowardly route and changed the topic. So I'm like really afraid that I'm going to gross you out if we connect like that again. All these embarrassing things all these things I don't want other people to know. All these stray, unworthy thoughts. There are a lot of things I don't want other people to know. I have all these stray, unworthy thoughts. And like, there's some stuff involved with being female I'm not sure you're ready for. It took him a second to recognize what she was getting at. Oh, right. I hadn't thought of that. I think I'll be okay. I'm more worried about how you'll feel. Freya, I'm just disgusting. You have no idea. I'm legitimately terrified. Then there's... Then there's... He began to say something, but he couldn't complete it. His face was scrunched with tension, but he just couldn't get the words out. It's okay, she said, and she paused, inviting him to continue. Dan shook his head. He wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. Dan shook his head. He wasn't ready. After a few moments, it was his turn to chicken out and change the subject. He rubbed the back of his head. So what do we do? Aren't we supposed to tell someone about this? It seems insanely big for the two of us to deal with alone. It seems like an insanely huge thing for the two of us to deal with alone. I don't think we should. I think they would probably lock us up and study us. They would take the star ball away. I don't want that. I don't want to be separated from it. I don't want... Mm. I think they would probably lock us up and study us. They'd take the star ball away. I don't want that. I don't want to be separated from it. I don't want to be separated from you. The thing that's happening to us, I don't want to stop. I want to get to that place and never leave. He shut his eyes and nodded. He wanted that very much. Freya, what if this is like an alien invasion? What if it was sent here to, pacify us? What if it was sent here to pacify us so they can take over? What if it was sent here to pacify us? Sent here to pacify us so they can take over. Take over what? I don't know, the world? What if they want to enslave us or wipe us out? Well, why would they want to do that? I don't know. That's what they do in movies. And movies written by humans, Dan. Aliens in those are just a stand-in for tribal xenophobia. I have no idea what the motives of the Starball are. I can't even tell if it's a living thing or just a machine. Maybe it's a scout for their invasion force. It's not a problem, Freya said, glad to find something she felt certain about. Huh? I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Let's say the Starball came from the absolute closest star system, Alpha Centauri. That's 4.3 light years away. Let's say it's flying as fast as the fastest object we've ever observed in space, though I know it wasn't even close to that fast because it would have burnt up in the atmosphere. At that speed, it would have taken 20,000 years to get here. Even if they're preparing the invasion force right now and it leaves tomorrow, we'll be long gone before they arrive. What do you mean long gone? I mean people won't be here when they arrive. Our civilization isn't sustainable, Dan. There are too many of us. We use too many resources and we're headed for a big crash. When that happens, it just takes one nuke to start the party. Dan's face grew ashen. He hadn't been prepared to hear that. Again, Freya was reminded not everyone had grown up with Randall. The truth is way scarier than aliens, Freya said, her voice bitter. We should honestly be praying this is aliens planning to take over. We aren't going to make it on our own. Did you think that before you found the Starball? Dan asked, staring at her closely. Yes. Yeah, Randall and I used to talk about it all the time. Yeah, Randall and I used to talk about it a lot. Do you know what the Fermi paradox is? Dan shook his head. It's the idea that there are so many stars out there that intelligent life should have already tried to contact us. There are a lot of attempted explanations for it. One of them is called the Great Filter. It's the idea that civilizations capable of interstellar communication tend to extinguish themselves within 100 years or so of developing the capability. That's definitely us. Dan took a deep sip of his coffee as he tried to wrap his mind around it. Freya glanced towards the kitchen, wondering where their soup was. She was really hungry and coffee was putting her on edge. Okay, so one deviation right here. It should not take this long to get pho, right? Pho is so fast, man. They just throw the shit together. We're I'm not willing to change it away from being pho. But yeah, man, it shouldn't take so long to get pho. I understand that. I fully admit it. No, which way does the oh no. It shouldn't take this long to make VHP. She was really hungry, and the coffee was putting her on edge. Dan began, and he closed his mouth, swallowing whatever he meant to say. Freya, this is really dangerous. We don't know what this is, or what it's doing. Freya, this is really dangerous. We don't know what the Starball is or what it's doing. I think we should try to get some help. He'd sat up straight as he said it, looking determined. This was the Dan she really wanted. He was so much sharper with her than he seemed around everyone else, where he was always joking and playing dumb. With a pang of sorrow, she knew she might be about to lose him, but it was hopeless to try and conceal how she felt. Alea iacta est. I already chose, she said. I was already gone when I found the Starball. I want to see where it takes me. I'm not going to tell anybody else but you about it. Come with me, Dan. I can't just surrender myself like that, Dan protested. I did, Freya said. You don't have to. We could talk to Dr. Arbulio together, try and figure this out. We can be strong on our own, Dan said. His lips were tight. Dan. Freya said his name softly and stared into his eyes. She didn't want to hurt him, and she knew she was going to anyway. You're just pretending. Her words burned into both of them. They lowered their heads, their eyes welling with tears, and then there were no more words. They both knew it was true. The waitress waited until they were both done crying to bring them their soup. Damn, son. Fuck me. Oh. All right. I'm a little, like, heartbroken by what's going down right there. So I think we got a little loose in terms of our editing on the last chapter. So it's about here. What if this is like an alien invasion? It's a long chapter. But I think the things that are happening in there are interesting. We may think about breaking things up at the midway point. What we want to go back to is the scene at the Silas River. And hopefully I haven't already fucking done this. What happened in that scene? Angie. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to make sure that she hasn't admitted how she tried to kill herself here. It was just like he said. Okay. When I tried. Okay. So we're taking out the part about the river. When I tried, it was just like you said. As soon as I was committed to die, I wanted to live more than anything. But that feeling didn't last. Was it like that for you? Yes. The shine wore off. How long ago was that? A while. What's a word for half a lie? Half truth. You could say that she stretched. Let's look at synonyms for lied. Misled, deceived, dissembled, white lie, concocted, fabricated, invented, misguided, misinformed, misspoke, paltered. Ooh, I like that. Palter. Ooh, that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Whew, gangsta word. Yeah, like I've read it before, so we're right in the context there. That's what we want. Yeah, that's perfect. Hold on, let's dictionary paltered. Make sure that we're exactly right in our. To talk or act insincerely or deceitfully, to lie or use trickery, to bargain with, to hackle, to act carelessly, to trifle. I did not know that was like the root of paltry right there. Oh, by the way, fuck you to dictionary.com for having all these unheterosexual advertisements clogging up my shit right there. It's ridiculous. Somehow that's more offensive than just calling them gay. Like obviously. It's pretty juvenile to be like, there's gay ads all over my screen. But somehow the other way is much worse. Oh, hypersexuality, female wet dream. Okay, cool. There's no fight left in Dan. That's a good chapter. Okay, so we've made that change, which was critical. And I'm glad that I could remember I had fucked that up because I think we made that change in the edit. I'm like, why didn't I just say where she's at? They're right at the river. So really important to sort that. You download Grinder once, and this is what happens. God. It's not that. Okay. So that chapter probably needs another tune-up, but I did not think that we would get through chapter 59 today. Really did not think that. So this is chapter 60, not chapter 560, thank God. How long is chapter 60? So let's get an idea for... here, hold on. I'm going to fucking... Yeah, like you guys can't see what I'm doing here. I should just put the dog on or whatever there. 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh. Oh, so it's about 7 pages long. It is the kind of chapter that I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's go back to our main feed right there. It's about 7 pages for the next chapter. It is the kind of thing that if I feel up to it later in the day, we could potentially do it. But I just have not been doing double editing streams. Usually I feel like pretty stretched thin at the end of one of these sessions. And we really put some hard work into this one here. I think we did a good job. So thank you all. Oh wow, it's 10:30, whatever. Definitely like a 3-hour stream. Thank you all for being a part of this. I need to remember that we probably need to scroll back for about like 3 or 4 pages and just do like a slight edit on those the next time that we edit. In fact, let's go back to here. Oh fuck. I know that this shipping us doesn't work there, so let's go back to here. So this is where we're going to try and start editing again tomorrow. Thank you all for participating in this shit. Yeah, Sunday morning editing with my homies. Y'all are the best. Peace, Pump.